Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode, we're going to talk about another Olympic contender, Sony A9 Mark II. So let's dive right into it. Well, first you have to understand what the heck it is. It is a Sony offering of a full frame camera that is targeted for one thing and one thing alone. It's a sports camera, and that is why there is basically three models right now on Sony full frame lineup. They have 24 low budget option, then they have 60 megapixel high resolution version for like wedding or model photography, landscape and all that jazz, and then they have dedicated sports one. Now what the heck it has that makes it dedicated for sports? The sensor is different. Even though it's same 24 megapixel, it has stacked technology. Basically there is a memory controller right behind it, and it's collecting data. So what does that mean? Why does that matter to you? Well, think of it this way. The biggest hurdle with CMOS sensor is because they are not global shutter. So what does that mean? That simply means whenever you are taking photos like a golf swing, if it's an electronic shutter, you're gonna get yellow, everything would be skewed, so which we call rolling shutter. Now this reduces it to considerable degree. Basically it reduces it so much that after a point you're like, yeah, you have to nitpick in order to figure out like there is a rolling shutter in that. So that is the main reason why this camera is so expensive. Like all the money went into research and developing this. So in terms of autofocus, its previous version, basically A9 itself, was so ahead of the curve. There was no competition in any system. Flat out, it was uncomparable. And on top of that, you might say, hey, what about the Nikon's upcoming Olympic series camera and Canon's new 1XD Mark III and all that jazz? Is like they have great autofocus, yes, absolutely, to the current one really good, but they have one critical limitation. That limitation being that imagine your sensor is this big. Now this is your frame, field of view, whatever you want to call it, and your autofocus point is limited like this in DSLR. In mirrorless it's almost same. That is the big difference. Now that is why many people jumped into this system and they're not coming back even with hundreds of issues of mirrorless, simply because it has almost 93% sensor coverage. So almost the whole sensor is acting as a focus point. Why does that matter? That matters a lot in a bird photography. You can see Jared Poland's video. I have provided a link down below on that. And even in sports, because you will not always have the luxury that okay, I'm going to perfectly frame them sometimes, because again these are athletes, these are top of their game, they might be running around and all that, especially in like ice hockey or things of that nature. So when they are doing that, if they are out of autofocus point, the focus system will not engage. So by the time you move your camera into a central point, there is delay in that. But if your sensor is like, if it's in the field of view, it captures it, the tracking system will have much longer time to work out like okay, this is the one that you want to target. Or you can just like move it like okay, subject number 1, subject number 2, subject number 3, and you can start doing this much before than any Canon or Nikon system. DSLR I'm talking about. Now that's a very critical advantage. So what were the improvements? Because when it came out, and like again the announcement I'm talking about, every Tom, Dick and Harry was like, dude, this is just a polished version of basically Mark 1. And that's true in one regard, because that was like they pre-released 5G technology before the circuit board behind the technology was ready. Basically the battery drain was too high and all that jazz. So this time they got the luxury of polishing it, because the sensor is way ahead of its curve. It's like, yeah, it's nobody can compete against it, simply because think of it this way. To match the same kind of frame rate per second as this puppy, Canon has to make a camera that is 20 megapixel. So let that understand, 20 megapixel, 24 megapixel, and this has much better stacking technology. So it is it was so ahead that they had to catch up with themselves, and they're like, okay, let's make it much more improved, refined, polished and all that. So one of the biggest concern that professional photographers have is like they need connectivity, because now we are no longer in print media age. Every photograph that you take goes into quote unquote vlog, news channels instantaneously. Like that should has to, you took the photo, it must be there in next 5 minutes or 10 seconds. So how the heck you do that? Well, you have to have better connectivity. And for this version, even the earlier one had all the technology. This time they polished it. What does that mean? That simply means they now added 5 gigahertz. Now this is one thing that Canon knows, that they had to have 5 gigahertz, so they added an external antenna, but the inbuilt one is only 2.5 gigahertz. That's a weird thing. But the reason for that is, while 2.5 gigahertz have higher range, they have very few channels. Basically the 2.5 gigahertz, the channel count is like around 12 to 13. Now, however, in that only 3 channels are non-interfering: channel number 1, channel number 6 and channel number 11. So basically if there are more than 3 to 4 cameras in photo booth of a basically Olympic event, and all of them are using wireless, forget about it. If it's in basically 2.5 gigahertz band. However, in 5 gigahertz band, your range is shorter, so basically you're not going to get interference from somebody like other side of the field, because again fields are like quite clear line of sight, so you will have a lot of interference. It also has 23 channels that are like non-interfering, so literally you have to have multiple peoples, and by the time you reach the 24th limit, the router can go set itself to back to channel number 1, and there will not be interference. That's a very big deal. On top of that, that's like, okay, you have the luxury of using your camera in a occupied field. You also have the luxury of much higher bandwidth, because 2.5 gigahertz best case scenario 60 to 70 megabits per second. When you're talking about 5 gigahertz, 433 megabits per second. So that the lane that you get to your camera, that's much bigger, much fatter. So it's really improved. So basically, if you are posting on Instagram and you want to do it quickly, which nowadays are required by professional photographer, so it can be done like a snap. Then you have to worry about the Ethernet aspect also, because if you are backing up and you want a reliable connection, you really don't want to go over wireless, because even though 5 gigahertz is fast, and the theoretical maximum is 433, you're never gonna reach that. But when you're talking about Ethernet, either it's gonna work or it's not gonna work, and if it's gonna work at high speed, which is gigabyte per second. So that is a very big deal for the people who do FTP server system. And even on FTP server, earlier, even all cameras like from as old as 2010 and 12, cameras had FTP very long ago. However, they had a lot of limitations. Basically, you have to set it up. Once you are done with the shoot, then you start to transfer the files. Then this puppy now can do it in background, so basically you can keep shooting and it's going to keep transferring. You don't have to worry about it. So what does that mean? What does that translate to? That simply translates to, if there is a big server of your, let's say, National Geography, they can have photographers taking the photos of the event. That will be backed up to the server will be linked into the main headquarter. They will have editors. The photos are edited and literally polished to a professional degree within minutes. So that is a very big improvement for pro photographers, and that's why like Sony literally listened to the people what they want in Olympics. They're like, yeah, we're gonna give you that. Then the Mark 1 version had one weird flaw, and that flaw was because they wanted to compatibility with their Magic Gate memory card. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It was Sony being stupid. So this time they have fixed it. Now they have dual UHS2. Now ideally you would have the amazing technology that Sony themselves made, known as C-Fast Express system, which is based on XQD, which is made by Sony. But again, Sony being Sony, but they have improved it. UHS2, both of them. Why does both matters? Well, think of this way. The older one, if you did you wanted to use the camera at full speed, you had to have RAW on UHS2, JPEG on UHS1. People don't like that. People want redundancy. They are like, do RAW on both of them. The moment you do RAW on both of them in generation 1, it will slow down to the slowest card speed. This time that is not an issue, so it is a really welcome improvement. Then we have USB-C fast charging. Now remember, like, doesn't all Sony camera have USB charging? That is true, but they had micro B charging. Now USB-C fast charging is a new improvement. Why? Because USB-C has a PD standard, basically power delivery standard, and that puppy is powerful. It was designed in so so far ahead that it is capable of driving a computer monitor or charging a laptop. It has in level 5, it can send 20 volts with 5 amperes, so that's 100 watts of power. So utilizing basically USB-C charging standard, you can charge this puppy very quickly, and that's kind of a shame that Canon did not did that. You might be like, oh, its battery is so huge. Again, that puppy was designed to charge at 100 watt. That battery does not have 100 watt capacity, so inherently that's a limitation, because right now you can have a vertical grip and you can have two batteries. You can remove one battery, charge it on a battery cradle, charge one on this system, and you're gonna be ready in twice the time. And if you are not doing something very serious, you just wanna chill out and do sports photography for your family, or your kid doing something, you can just have one battery, and if you are worried about charging, you just connect the USB-C. So that these are little things that they have improved. Now all of them, there is a giant video I provided down below, because there are so many little improvements that if all of them are combined, yes, it truly is a new camera. It's not something, oh, it's just a firmware fix. No, truly it is a different camera. Little by little, they have improved so much that it is a different camera. Even the hot shoe got an upgrade. Now it has the basically digital audio transfer. What does that mean? That simply means the new wireless mic, I'm saying the new mics that are available on Sony hot shoe with interactive cinema, they can directly transmit the data digitally. So there will no longer be noise that you hear from whenever you send amplifier signal to another amplifier. Basically, you don't want analog transfer. Analog transfer always introduces hiss. So this puppy bypasses that issue. So hundreds of small issues are there. Basically small polish are there. So if all of them are combined, it does make anybody who's using is like, yeah, this is much better. So what about the performance? Okay, it is improved. Again, it is at a point where A9, basically Mark 1 was so ahead that people are like, yeah, dude, your camera is too good. Now this time they have improved the processor that is behind the sensor. So now they are doing at 60 hertz. What does that 60 hertz mean? It simply means the camera is processing, taking a photo, quote unquote taking a photo, is taking a photo, analyzing it, figuring it out, then doing it again, then doing it again. And your maximum shutter speed can go is around 30, I'm saying 20. That translates to 3 to 1. So basically, before camera allows you to shoot, camera has double checked every frame whether it's in focus or not. That is why the hit rate on this puppy is so high that people are not even testing it. This is like, yeah, you aimed it, you press the shutter button, is in focus, it's in focus. Like people who have done like detailed buffer shots, they're like, yeah, every single frame is in focus, every single one of them, because camera literally has enough speed that they're like, no, out of focus, okay, in focus, now send this to the photographer. So it's amazingly fast at this point in time. So don't even think about talking about it. And not to mention, it has the luxury of full sensor coverage, where you cannot get from any DSLR. Now, buffer performance is still an issue because I specified only Canon knows how to make a buffer-free performance. So Sony being Sony, buffer performance have been improved a lot compared to the previous one, and because you no longer have card slowdown, it will clean up much faster. But it's not like, you can't keep doing it for 5 to 10 minutes. So that's a bit of oof. Then because they are doing that, like, high frequency autofocusing and analyzing algorithm, they received something that was a big issue with electronic shutter, which we call flickering. Your light flickers. So because it can run at 60 hertz, and if you are familiar with your electricity, you know it's either in 50 hertz or 60 hertz. So the sensor system can detect it and only take photograph when it's at the highest brightness. So you will not have like weird banding. So the anti-flicker, every early testing people have done, they're like very happy with it. It's like, again, it's not eliminates it to 100%, but your photos, let's say you are buffering around 100 photographs. From 100 photographs, earlier time it was like 70 to 80 of them have some issue, minor issue, but this time there's like minor issues are limited to only 10 or 8 images. So that is tangibly much more improvement. Especially people who do a lot of indoor photography from indoor lighting stadiums, they are really looking forward to this aspect. And the body has been improved a lot, because this is one thing that Sony was truly criticized for. It's like, dude, your body sucks. Now they have learned it, and given the fact that they have huge lenses now, and again, it's a sports for travel, so people are gonna put huge lenses, they have improved the body. So battery grip has now been much more deeper, the buttons are much more pronounced, and there is a locking exposure dial. All of those improvement really make it a better experience. That's all you have to think about it. So if you have this camera and you're not able to achieve what you want to achieve, there's either you have a defective camera or you are unable to utilize it, or you're expecting something that it is not meant to do. So performance wise, you don't criticize it anymore at this point. Now, what about the lenses? Now, this was the biggest concern with Sony A9 Mark 1, is that, okay, you made amazing camera, no denying that. It has some glitches back in then, but again, in this one, you have polished all of them. But what about the lenses? Lenses are the soul of the camera. This time, that's not an issue anymore, simply because you have to understand, great camera needs great lenses. To achieve that, you must understand this. If you're buying this, please try to utilize as many Sony first party lenses as possible. And Sony have released multiple new lenses specifically targeted for Olympics. One of the cheap options, which is like quite amazing for the cost, it's EF 200 to 600 millimeter. And one of the interesting thing you have to understand, if you look at the prime sports lenses, they are very expensive. They are like, in Indian currency, they are like 12 lakhs, while Canon's prime lenses of the same caliber is around 8 lakhs. So it is expensive, definitely expensive. However, the Canon lenses are 4 kilogram, while this puppy is 3 kilogram. So that is why many people are, even with the higher cost, the moment they hold it in their hand, yeah, I will take one. So that is a big improvement, because if you have to do this, and you have to do this like literally, this is your job for like, as long as the Olympic goes on, reducing 1 whole kilogram out of your lens is a tangible improvement. So they have done that. And even in this like 200 to 600 millimeter lens, people who have used this, they're like, dude, it's literally like they sat down and like looked at Nikon lens. This is the good thing, this is the bad thing. Looked at the Canon lens, this is the good thing, this is the bad thing. And this puppy has none of those defects. Again, it has some of its unique defects and all that, but it's literally the same philosophy in engineering. You build it first or you build it better. These lenses that they are improving, they are genuinely good. They're like, damn, damn good. And not to mention, because Sony is coming from a television industry, from a movie industry, their autofocus is on a different level. And because they have a camera that is like, autofocusing 60 times a second, they need parallel autofocus algorithms. Basically, these puppies have two lens algorithm that's doing like this. That is how they can manage that high speed autofocus. And that is why I'm specifying you have to have Sony's current gen lenses to really push it. Again, it's not that it's not going to work with your Sigma or Tamron or Voigtlander. To really utilize that like YOLO performance, you need Sony lenses. And as of now in this Olympic, Sony is gonna make a very good showing. Let's see how it turns out. So this was my presentation on Sony A9 Mark II. I hope you liked it, learn from it. In that case, please click like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I'd urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me your extra disappointment, and please leave a comment because I'll try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.